welcome to A Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Today I've got a really it's an interesting story, it's an interesting video, and it's kind of what a lot of guys, again, are finding when they go out to date with these women that have very high expectations of the guy when they're maybe not bringing that much to offer. And you know, we talk about this an awful lot, but I like showing you what happens to a lot of these guys while they're on a date. So if you're considering dating or you're considering putting yourself out there, you have an idea of what you're actually going to get. But this woman decides to go all out and shame this guy. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about why women are traditionally interested in a guy's resources, but are now moving more towards guys' looks and not worrying about the resources as much. Because traditionally you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, or you could be a successful business owner, whether that's blue collar or other, make a good income, and you would still get a pretty good looking, like decent woman. So here's the article. How much money do you make? Woman shames man for taking her to Applebee's on first date. I'm going to play the video after this, so I won't read too much in depth. But a man on TikTok filmed an interaction he had during a date on which the woman appears to shame him for choosing Applebee's as a date location. And look, they're both sitting here with drinks, right? You have a couple of drinks, you have dinner, you're at Applebee's. Right now with inflation and everything else, you're still probably talking about at least 50, 60 bucks. I'd say that's a decent investment for a first date that may not get you anywhere. And I'm gonna read this through, and that way I can play more of the video without interrupting it, because I'm gonna do my analysis during this. But again, right out of the get-go, right out of the beginning, how much money do you make? That's like going out on a date and a woman's wearing a sweater, and a guy says, look, you're wearing a sweater, I can't really tell. Do you have a thin waist and big tits? Because if you don't, I mean, I'm just not a shallow guy that's all into your physical looks, but are you stacked? That'd be the same damn thing. And she comes right out and says, I'm not a gold digger, but the first question I'm going to ask you is about your money, and I don't go out with broke guys. Now, the guy says, I make enough. I think he says, I make enough. I don't know if he says to be comfortable, whatever, but he says, I make enough. I know you just took me to Applebee's. I get it. Maybe you don't want to take me to the most fanciest place, like on the first date. But never again are you going to take me again. But never again are you going to take me again, she continues. Applebee's is not acceptable. What kind of self-righteous bitch is this already, where they just sit down, they just kind of get going, and she's like, this is, just so you know, this is not acceptable. My standards are higher than this. It's funny because you're sitting there and you're having drinks maybe after you've eaten. You don't, if it wasn't acceptable, here's what I would have said if I was this guy. Hey, you know what? I understand if I'm not acceptable for you. I had a good time. I'd lay down a couple of bills to pay for my beer or my portion of the dinner and say good luck to you. And then leave. Leave and let her pay her half. You paid yours. She can't bitch. And if it's not good enough for her and she's used to fancier high cuisine, I'm sure she can afford it. So she could easily afford her half of the Applebee's bill. He says, the overlay says, are females this savage nowadays? Asked the text overlaying the video. The current TikTok video, which is trash anyway, has 3.7 million views. Good. I hope it gets to 100 million. I'm not much of a TikTok guy. I don't have it installed. I'm not into giving all my information to the Chinese Communist Party. But the more views this gets, the more guys are going to realize women can be absolute vicious. In the comments section, viewers said they were asked such a series of questions the date would not have lasted much longer. I agree. Damn, the thought of leaving her stuck with a bill has never crossed my mind so fast, wrote one user. I would have went to the restroom and dipped, another agreed. I would have told the waiter to split the check, please, offer a third. That's what I'd do. But I wouldn't wait. I'd be like, I'm done. Can we get the split check? Apparently, the woman in the video saw the original TikTok and texted him. And the text interaction, the woman called Lucky YYYY Luciano 1, not a gentleman. He's not a gentleman for outing her being a gold digger, and claimed that posting of the video was messed up. It's not my fault all these broke guys are mad in the comments, and those girls are happy with a $5 burger, she wrote. Shaking my head, he answered. So apparently not. Now, number one, we both know an Applebee's burger is not $5. I guarantee you, I haven't looked it up. I guarantee you it's at least 12 to 15 bucks here in the United States, depending on where you are. If you're in a big metropolitan city, it may be as much as 20 for a burger and fries. And then you add on the drinks and everything. Her half of the bill was at least $30 to $35. And again, anybody that makes fun of her, she says are mad and they're broke. So guys, if you're not okay with being taken advantage of, you're broke. So let me play the video for you, and you can just hear, like, man, it's just.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
How much money do you make? Like, I don't want to seem like interested in like money and stuff, but I just want to come out from the get-go to tell you, like, I'm not a gold digger or anything, but I just don't go out with broke boys.
I think I made good enough to.
And I know you just took me to Applebee's,
Like, I know you just took me to Applebee's and stuff, but like, I don't date broke guys, and I totally don't, like, so you can't be broke and you must make money, and Applebee's is not accepted.
I get it. Maybe you don't want to take me to the most fanciest place, like on the first date, but never again are you gonna take me here.
Next time we could go somewhere else. But.
Like, Applebee's is not acceptable. I'm high end.
We're just getting to know you.
You know what's funny? She probably paid more for those nails than he is for dinner. And she's worried about the money that he makes and spends.
I'm high end.
We're just getting to know you.
She says I'm high end.
You're not even my girl.
Well, yeah, but this is dating to marry, right?
Or who knows?
And if I date, it's not to waste my time, so I'm not going to be going out and going to, cheap restaurants.
You know what's funny about this is she's like, oh, I'm dating to get married, okay? I'm not dating for, I'm not wasting my time. I'm dating for marriage. And he's like, yeah, or like whatever. He's not thinking about marriage. He's not, so she's obvious. I would think she's probably well into her 30s at this point. He's not looking to get married. He's looking to smash. And he's just like, why are you thinking dating? Like, I get it when she says, hey, I'm dating to marry. Okay, that's fine. But if what the first qualification out of your mouth for marriage to somebody is how much money do you make, and he says I'm fine, and then you keep going on about the money, that is the biggest red flag ever. Because here's the thing: if a woman said to a guy, "Hey, I want to get married, but I'd like to date somebody that's successful. I mean, are you doing okay in your life?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, I'm doing good." Done. Move on to the next topic. But she wants to go on and on and on about it. Okay, so here's a Big Think article, and then I'm going to jump into Psychology Today. And this is kind of interesting, I actually think. They say on Big Think, do women really value income over looks in a mate? And she comes down here and they say researchers have done a study on this, and they say find that for men, there is no amount of income that the woman in the bottom 10% in terms of appearance can earn to make the men prefer her over women in the top 10%. So this is the old joke about Oprah Winfrey. Like, there's not a lot of guys clamoring to get with Oprah Winfrey or Madonna while she's in her 60s, because there's no amount of money that can make guys go, all right, I'll bite the bullet and date this person. They say for women, though, the man in the bottom 10% in terms of looks who earns more than about $250,000 per year, they will prefer him over the more attractive guy earning $60,000. My students often interpret this result as saying that all women really care about is money, but that's not what it says at all. $186,000 is a huge difference in income. If women didn't care about looks and only cared about money, the figure would be much, much lower. This says, despite the impression on the marriage market, women really do care about income. The evidence suggests they also care about looks. They just care about income too. Now, what's interesting about this, I would love to see an experiment. And I've thought about doing this, although I think on a lot of dating apps now, you have to have the photos approved. And that way it doesn't show your Johnson hanging out or a girl's got her bobs out or something. I'd be really interested to see if a guy just posted his income. Like, say he had a fat income of 400, or like a bank statement or something that marked out his personal information and was just a screenshot of, like, deposits, 473,000. Balance 2.3 million. I would be really interested if a guy posted that with a picture, if he'd get contacted with, and then the women were like, I'll see what he looks like, and if it's not too bad, I'll go out with him. I really wonder if that would be the case. I think it would be, honestly. It wouldn't be from the younglings out there unless they wanted a sugar pay for play, and then they'd be asking the dude for $3,000 just to say hi. But I bet he'd get, if a guy was in his 40s or 50s or whatever, and he was searching, and the 30-somethings, late 30-somethings was in his range, he'd get probably as many hits or more hits than the hot guys. I firmly believe that. But here's another article, and this is from just 3 years ago. Do women really prefer men with money over looks? And this actually, I think, is what's happening, especially to the younger people today. Is that let me see if I can find the paragraph that I had highlighted, and of course it disappeared. All right, let me go through here, and basically what they're saying is that men. Back in the hunter-gatherer days, men brought the meat, women got gathered, right? The women were always guaranteed to pretty much gather food, and then the men would get the highly prized meat. And if the men couldn't hunt or capture or get the meat, they still had something to eat. So both brought kind of equal value, and in some cases, the women's value was actually more because they were guaranteed food. Then move forward to kind of the instead of hunter-gatherer to the times of agriculture. Men would go out and toil and work in the field, toil the soil. They'd go out and work and till the soil and work and toil over the manual labor. And that was for both the vegetables and the fruit and the meat and everything else. And the women took more domesticated. And so then men were really prized for their value, and women actually less so, because keeping a clean home and raising the kids was something the guys could do, maybe just not as well. So coming forward, it's actually more societal that men are valued more than women. It's kind of just a societal norm. And the transition from foraging to farming, there was a shift in the roles that men and women played. I just mentioned that. Women were relegated to domestic chores, childcare, cooking, cleaning, while the men brought in all the food. By the end of the 20th century, women were making great strides in regaining the gender equality they'd lost at the advent of agriculture. Thus, societal roles theory predicts that women preferences in mates should shift back toward looks over resources, to the extent they're no longer dependent on men to provide for them. When Eagley and Wood reanalyzed the cross-culture data on sex differences in mate preferences, they believed they'd found just such a pattern. So what they're saying here basically is it's like when men were providers, attractive women would look at what they're providing, and the more attractive the woman, the more that she made it up with a more successful guy, that they valued that more, because it meant the kids will never suffer. They could afford doctors. They had a beautiful home. They were the envy of the neighborhood, which is social status, things like that. And so a man's income was his primary value. Looks were secondary. Well, now as women are making more money, and actually, again, the pay gap is like between 3 and 5% that many studies have determined, because men are more aggressive in asking for raises. That's about the difference. And the reason why men still make more today, as we've talked about, they're willing to work overtime. They're willing to work more dangerous jobs. They're willing to work overtime. They'll make other sacrifices. But as these incomes have kind of evened out, women are now saying, I don't need a guy that makes more money than I do. And if they do, they want him to make 150% more than she does. It's got to be a very dramatic amount. So if they don't require him to make more money, what are they doing? They're chasing looks. And so, yeah, guys are going to have to say, hey, I have a weak chin. I need to grow a beard. I need to hit the gym. I need to maybe get contacts instead of glasses, which I have contacts. The only time I ever wear them is when I'm motorcycle riding. Thank goodness my vision isn't that poor. But even if it was, like, I don't care what I look like. So, but if you do want to be in that market, men are now going to have to view themselves like women do, which is looks above all else. At least till women get into their 30s, and then they want the provider guy. They say, let's see, right here, to further test society role theory, University of Glasgow psychologist Benedict Jones and his colleagues collected a much larger cross-cultural data set over an 8-year period and subjected it to more sophisticated statistical procedures than Ely and Woods have done. The results were disappointing for supporters of social role theory, and that the researchers found little difference in mate preferences for women in more egalitarian societies compared to those with more traditional ones. So how do we interpret Jones and colleagues' results? They do lend support for evolved preferences theory. However, as we've already seen, there are reasons for being skeptical about the idea that women evolved preference for men with resources over looks in the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness. In contrast, social role theory does describe the realities of modern society, making it more plausible than an evolutionary explanation. So what they're basically saying here is that the more traditional roles, so for example, the more that men make in a society and the less women make, the more the men's income is valued. So what's interesting here is the reason why in Scandinavian countries that the imbalance is so crazy is because in the Scandinavian countries, they pushed very hard for women to do whatever you want. They pushed for equality roles in jobs. They said, hey, women, you can do anything, and men, you can do anything, and go get them. And what they found is women naturally gravitated towards the kind of the historical roles that women like to do, which is childcare and teaching and nursing and caring for other people. And the men went straight to engineering. I did a video on this a couple of years ago, but the men went straight to engineering and mathematics and building, and because and they say that testosterone in the womb actually dictates if you're more like logical thinking and interested in items and working with things and math and stuff like that. And if there's more estrogen in the womb, you naturally gravitate towards more like nursing and caring for people. And it doesn't mean it has nothing to do with the male-female dichotomy, because there were females with higher testosterone that wanted to do more logical things, and there were males, and this is only in the womb, mind you, there were males that had lower testosterone in the womb that became nurses or wanted to teach and things like that. And it's not, this has nothing to do with masculinity or how much testosterone you are or how much how manly you are. This is all during development stages. And then once you come out, it's just kind of how things were built in your brain before you came out. And what they're saying is the more they say you can do whatever you want, the women tend to do the jobs that women traditionally like. The men do the jobs they've traditionally liked. The income disparities are there because, again, an engineer that helps build a rocket that propels something to the moon it's a much harder job, and it requires more experience than, say, for example, a kindergarten teacher. So, of course, that guy's going to make more money. Well, in those societies, the women, the difference is that if you're less attractive, and again, this is based on the articles. You guys may have a different experience in the Scandinavian. I can only talk about studies, right? But the studies say that the bigger the difference, the more a man will be valued for his money. Even though you've got guys that are in the STEM field making 60, 80, 100 grand a year. Well, now a human resources manager makes that same amount of money. So she can still chase her passions, but make as much money as a guy that's doing maybe something that he loves. And with those incomes being equal, out of all things, women are saying, look, you make about the same money as I do. You're not bringing much to the table, even though you're literally doubling her salary, because she assumes that the guy's going to spend as much money as she is. So it's kind of like, well, if I make 100 grand and he makes 100 grand and we're together, there's no benefit. Not really thinking about the fact that you'll be splitting household costs, you'll be splitting insurances, taxes, different things like that. So that's why I think a lot of guys that go to Southeast Asia have such an easy time of things, because if you're an American that's making $30,000 or $40,000 a year and you go over to a smaller town in, say, the Philippines, that girl may be only making $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 a year. And so when she sees a guy that's making 30 or 40 grand, she's like, he's got 6 to 8 times more income. That is valuable to me. And if you're a guy that makes 80 or 100 grand and you go overseas and you're spending, $5 and $10 bills like they're water, that's where a Southeast Asian woman might say, wow, this guy is rich, even though you're not in comparison to her. And that's why you see these little, 21-year-old slim, stacked hot nines over in the Philippines or in Thailand or whatever, willing to date and be with that guy. Where this all goes wrong, though, is when the man comes back from overseas and he gets here in the United States, his money's not going that far. Yes, she's still completely dependent on him, but when she looks around, she says, hey, this guy's average here, and I'm now with an average man here. I want to be with a high-value man. Well, a high-value man overseas that was visiting, when he comes home, might be back to an average, and she's going to start looking around for another high-value man. Or She's going to go out and look for a part-time or full-time job, starts working with some feminists and some other ladies, and she starts making her own income. And before you know it, she's making that 40, 50 grand. And she says, wow, I'm making as much as he does, but that value is no longer there. And then what does she see? She sees an average man, or maybe even not average looking, making an average salary. And now she's seeing guys that are making 100, 150, 200 grand, looking at her petite, pretty, sexy self, saying, boy, I'd love to take you out. She says, hey, that guy makes 200 grand. I'm with a guy over here making 30, 40. And hypergamy kicks in and she swings up. I mean, that's the science of this stuff. So it all goes back to, women are going to value men for money. They do. They always do. But as women's income comes up, men's income still proportionally has to be way above that. And that's getting extremely difficult. So men no longer have that advantage. So what do men have to do to regain the advantage? Look, I've said it many times. You either A, dip out of the dating market completely, then all your money's yours and you don't have to worry about it. And if you're comfortable enough, you can save up, go hire a professional for a couple weekends, a month or a year, whatever, get your rocks off, or don't even dip into that market. Just stay single, be happy if that's what you want to do. Men are overweight. I'm 5'6", 5'7", something like that. I haven't measured myself. I'm probably shrinking as I get older. My legs are long enough to reach the ground. That's really all I care about. But what's interesting is that if you're just, I think from my, what I was going to say is at my height, 5'6", 5'7", whatever it is, you get to be obese at 170 or 175 pounds. Gang, I hit that a few months ago. And it didn't, like, it creeps up on you really quick. And at 50, it creeps up on you quicker than you realize. So what do I have to do to get back into the top 20% of men? You got to watch your waistline and you got to hit the gym. And if you're a guy that's in his 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s or whatever, and you keep your fat content, you're not obese, you're not overweight, and you have some good muscle, you're a top 20%er in that category. And if you're missing the money side of it, you're not gonna be able to attract women because of your money. But if they're successful enough and they're not worrying about you as a potential spouse or partner, they're willing to say, hey, you know what? I'm comfortable right now in my life and my income. I don't need his money. He's kind of hot, or I like his shape, or he's got a great personality. I'd like to be with him. But the whole point is the dynamics are changing. And as soon as guys kind of understand this, that if you're in a very liberal city, you better focus on your looks. You better get yourself in shape. You better be as attractive as you can make yourself and have a good, and be able to talk good game. And then try to meet people in the real world instead of the dating apps. And if you're a guy in a rural, area, or you travel abroad or something like that, you can focus on that income. And I guarantee you, if you're in a small town without a lot of money, without a lot of competition, so to speak, if you just are not fat, just don't get fat. Doesn't matter if you have muscle or not, just be average weight. And if you make a lot of income, that young country girl that, comes from a poorer family, or if you're overseas and, that gal in the small town out there, she'll look at you and say, you know what? Hey, I find that attractive that he can take care of me and he can support me and he's got money and everything else. Again, that's why you don't marry him, because they can take that resource away from you. But, it kind of goes to show you that at least here in the Western world, it's becoming more and more about your looks, and you're going to have to play the game if you want to be in the market. I don't do this often, but I'm going to do a dating profile of the day here on YouTube because it perfectly shows the craziness that I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I need to get that oh, yeah, just on its own. Look, here's the thing. Right here, it says, about me. And I did this when I was on Rakita Law's podcast or YouTube channel a couple of weeks ago when I did a live stream over on Rakita Laws. This is the one I was talking about. But it shows, it exemplifies the craziness that women want. They want the everythings. About me, you must be 6'4", bench 200 pounds, run a 5-minute mile or faster. That just doesn't happen. That no human can bench 200 pounds and run a 5-minute mile. Like the muscles, you can have twitch muscles, you can have endurance muscles. Muscle types are all different. You're not going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger running a 5-minute mile. Not that you need to be Arnold to bench press 200 pounds. You can't have any kids, no recent ex-girlfriends, no records. Must-haves: a car not older than 2015. She's going to tell you how old your car can be. You need to have a house in your name, a sense of style. Swipe if your credit is 800 plus, 6-figure income, and no debt. She says if you do not have a college degree, you must have at least 500 grand in your savings account. Well, if you have 500 grand in your savings account, you're not very smart. You need to be investing that. And right now, like for me, for example, I pulled all my investments out of crypto, and I pulled it all out of the stock market, and I'm putting it into land and a house, but I'm not keeping it as cash. She says a bonus if you have a boat, a pool, or a hot tub. Pets are allowed, of course. Oh, good news, guys. You're allowed to have a pet, but they must be well-behaved and properly groomed, so you better not have an ugly dog. I'm not accepting questions. Interests: concerts, photography, Bravo Lima Mike, self-care, festivals. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like they've just gone so far off the rails that, it used to be guys could bring the income in. Now, guys, dating is just like, you need to be, what's the word I'm looking for? You need to be a woman. Like you need to have a good body. You need to be good looking. You need to be tall. Maybe you can get away from some of those. But again, I think the world would be different if you only swiped on bank accounts. Then the successful at least get shots. But now, if you're not really attractive, you're not even given a swing, at least in the online stuff. And in the real world, it's going to be a lot tougher for you. And the entitlement of these women is, even when you take them out, you're going to blow this money on a date, and she's going to tell you you're not good enough, and this is unacceptable. Again, this is why so many men have left the market. And when you ladies are single and you want babies and you can't find a family, and men are like, nope, not going to happen. This is why.